Washington just sent a signal that could shake the foundations of the Western alliance. In a speech that's already ricocheting through Brussels, Senator JD Vance declared that the era of automatic, unconditional American defense guarantees for Europe is over. Within hours, European officials were scrambling, defense analysts were going on emergency panels, and headlines screamed about a potential transatlantic rupture. But what actually happened? And is Europe truly in complete panic? Or is this the beginning of a long-anticipated strategic shift? Let's break it down. It started with a blunt statement. Speaking at a foreign policy forum in Washington, JD Vance argued that the United States must prioritize American security and American borders before underwriting the defense of wealthy European nations. He criticized NATO allies for what he described as chronic underinvestment in their own militaries, and questioned why American taxpayers should continue to carry what he called a disproportionate burden. The line that electrified the room was simple: Europe must stand on its own 2 feet. That single sentence triggered shockwaves. For decades, US defense of Europe has been anchored in NATO's Article 5 commitment, the principle that an attack on one member is an attack on all. Since the Cold War, that guarantee has formed the backbone of European security architecture. American troops stationed in Germany, Poland, Italy, and beyond symbolize not just military presence, but political commitment. Vance's remarks didn't formally withdraw from NATO. They didn't announce troop removals. But they signaled something more subtle and potentially more disruptive. They questioned the assumption. And assumptions are what alliances are built on. Within hours, officials in Brussels privately expressed concern that such rhetoric could embolden adversaries. European diplomats, speaking anonymously, warned that public doubt about American guarantees risks weakening deterrence against Russia. But here's the deeper context. The debate over burden sharing isn't new. Multiple US administrations, Democrat and Republican, have pressured European allies to meet NATO's defense spending target of 2% of GDP. For years, many failed to do so. Only after Russia's invasion of Ukraine did several European states dramatically increase defense budgets. Germany announced a historic rearmament fund. Poland ramped up spending beyond the NATO target. Nordic countries accelerated integration. So when Vance argues that Europe must do more, he's tapping into a long-running American frustration. What makes this moment different is tone and trajectory. Rather than urging Europe to spend more while reaffirming NATO's centrality, Vance framed the issue in civilizational terms. He suggested that Europe's strategic priorities have diverged from America's, and that US focus must shift toward domestic resilience and the Indo-Pacific. That shift matters. Strategically, Washington has already begun pivoting toward countering China. Defense planners increasingly view the Indo-Pacific as the primary theater of 21st century competition. Resources are finite. Attention is finite. If Europe is stable and capable, the argument goes, America can reallocate assets. But stability is precisely what European leaders fear losing. In Berlin and Paris, defense ministries have long debated strategic autonomy, the idea that Europe should build independent military capacity separate from Washington. Yet progress has been uneven. National rivalries, procurement fragmentation, and political hesitation have slowed integration. Now, Vance's remarks may accelerate that conversation. Publicly, European Commission officials reaffirmed commitment to transatlantic unity. NATO representatives emphasized that alliance structures remain intact. But behind the scenes, there is unease. Because deterrence depends not only on hardware, but on credibility. If adversaries perceive hesitation in Washington, even rhetorical hesitation, they may test boundaries through cyber operations, hybrid tactics, or regional provocations. At the same time, many American voters resonate with Vance's message. After decades of overseas engagements in Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond, there is fatigue. There is skepticism about open-ended commitments. The political undercurrent is clear. Why should America guarantee the defense of nations whose economies rival or exceed its own in per capita wealth? This question isn't isolationism, it's reprioritization. And Europe understands that distinction, which is why the reaction is tense, not hysterical. Let's examine the possible scenarios. Scenario 1. Rhetoric without rupture. In this pathway, Vance's comments represent negotiating leverage. Europe increases defense spending, accelerates joint procurement, and publicly demonstrates greater autonomy, while the US quietly maintains its core commitments. Scenario 2. Gradual recalibration. Washington reduces troop deployments over time, shifts missile defense assets, and emphasizes that European security must be primarily European-funded. NATO survives, but its operational balance shifts. Scenario 3. Structural transformation. The US formally redefines its role, Europe builds a consolidated defense pillar, and the alliance becomes more equal or more fragmented. Which is most likely? Short term, the first scenario dominates. There is no immediate legal change. NATO treaties remain binding. American troops remain deployed. But politically, the Overton window has shifted. European leaders can no longer assume unconditional continuity. They must plan for variability. And that is what fuels the panic narrative. It's not about tanks moving tomorrow. It's about uncertainty entering the equation. Markets react to uncertainty. Defense contracts